Craig Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's with a bit of sadness that I rise to contribute to this debate, because as a fellow Celt, I always look to some of my friends, honourable members over in Scotland, as a Welsh MP, to support much of what you do where I can. But this debate has brought a great sadness to me as a Remainer, and I was a happy Remainer until the referendum. My constituency, representing Cardiff, voted 60% to remain. But now I'm working with them to remain with the best bits of the European Union, but most of them, and I especially, am convinced that we are leaving, and that's that. We get on with it. I represent the University Hospital for Wales in Cardiff, and much has been said about the medical profession, how much we rely on people coming in from all over the world, not just the European Union. And I wonder whether the honourable members from the SNP have thought about what the language they're using in this debate today is creating, and the rhetoric they have been using. Thrown out, I just heard from the honourable lady before me. You know, this kind of language is not coming from my bench. It is not coming from our members. And this debate today, and I'll make a bit of progress and I will happily give way, but this debate today, you know, my right honourable friend from Rushcliffe made the point that we are agreeing on much of this, but my right honourable friend from the Forest of Dean and the honourable lady that followed me said that people before June the 23rd should have the right to stay. That's not what your motion says. Your motion says home. People have made the home here. That's open to much interpretation. And my learned friend from the Forest of Dean, who spoke with much experience as a former immigration minister, pointed out why that is a very clumsy motion, and primarily why I'm rising not to support it, but to say that I am working, and I will quote some government ministers after this, about what they're saying about EU nationals in my constituency, in Wales and in the United Kingdom, how they are welcome, how they make a terrific contribution to our economy, our communities and our society, and we want to keep them there, but we are rightfully trying to protect the interest of British people in the EU as well. And as a Welsh MP, I'm protecting Welsh people across the European Union that have settled all over the place. I'd hope you'd support me in that from Scotland, but I'm very saddened to hear much of the rhetoric I've heard during this debate. You know, even I will give way now. Yeah.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. When the honourable member talks about language being used, I'd like to ask the honourable member, was he at the Tory party conference? Because I'll tell you, my wife is an EU national. She already felt a second-class citizen because she does not get a vote from the UK government. And then when she listened to the Tory party conference, she said to me, I am no longer welcome in the UK under that government. How does he answer that?
I'm delighted that you were tuning into the Conservative Party conference. I was indeed at the Conservative Party conference with many EU nationals from my constituency of Cardiff North. On my team in this Parliament, I have EU nationals working for and with me. And this is just absolute nonsense. This is scaremongering, and it's terrible because the scaremongering is coming from the opposite benches. And it is deplorable, in my opinion. But what's it, bargaining chips? No, it's not. This is the whole notion about, after the referendum, what I fear that honourable members are trying to do on the opposite benches is rerun arguments from the referendum. And I was with you during the referendum on many of these arguments, but I'm afraid we lost, and we have lost the referendum. Now, I know the ambitions of the SNP is to ignore referendums until you get it right, but I'm afraid that as a Welsh member, we don't take that point of view. What we now respect is the will of the British people, and now creating of course I would give way to the Honourable.
Is the honourable gentleman aware that during the independence referendum in Scotland, the leader of the Conservative Unionist Party and Unionist Party in Scotland, Ruth Davidson, told the voters of Scotland that the only way they could guarantee their continued EU membership was to vote to remain part of the UK? And will he agree with me that that is now a broken promise?
Absolutely not. So Ruth Davidson is a politician without parallel in Scotland. And I'm incredibly proud that she leads our party up there, and I was up there in the independence referendum campaigning alongside her. But what I could happily do is chuck many quotes from the Spanish government echoing that point about Scottish membership of the European Union, but that will add nothing to my constituents. Much of this debate will add nothing to the people in my constituency, the EU nationals that are seeking some leadership from this place and certainty from this place. You're hearing it from the government, but you are not hearing it from members across this House that want to use this as a political football, which is deplorable. But if I can come back to some of the points and some of the... perhaps at this juncture I can quote, Madam Deputy Speaker, some of the government members. If we look at the Secretary of State for Brexit, we always welcome those with skills, the drive, the expertise to make our nation better still. If we are to win in the global marketplace, we must win the global battle for talent. How more welcoming can you be to EU nationals and indeed the world than that? If we look at what the Home Secretary said, I believe immigration has brought many benefits to this nation. It has enhanced our economy, our society, our culture. That is why I want to reduce net migration while ensuring to attract the brightest and the best. That's what my constituents put me here to do. That's the government I'm supporting, and I'm very delighted. And if we look at the Prime Minister in terms of talking about existing workers' legal rights, and she said, let me be absolutely clear, existing workers' legal rights will continue to be guaranteed in law, and they will be guaranteed as long as I am Prime Minister. And I can assure this House that she will be many years to come Prime Minister of this great country, and those workers' rights will be guaranteed. But I also want to take directly to the heart, and the Economic Secretary made a speech to the UK Financial Services recently, and he said, once I can find it, but he said, in essence, that as we negotiate this, that those that are currently here, as long as we get that comparable relationship with our EU nations, that there's no question that EU nationals that are already here working will be able to stay. But as the nub of the point is making sure we have that reciprocal arrangement with our EU neighbours. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, of course I'll give way to...
I'm grateful to my Welsh colleague in terms of giving way, Madam Deputy Speaker. He talks frequently about all these statements from various secretaries and indeed the Prime Minister, and about people working in this country. What do you say to my constituents who are pensioners that are EU nationals living in this country, who have not had the reassurance from various secretaries of state and the Prime Minister? He keeps talking about those who are working and the brightest and the best, and I'm sure everyone welcomes those people being and working in this country. But I'm not scaremongering. My constituents have not had that reassurance from the front bench at any point that if they are retired and living here, that they have the right to remain here.
I personally want them to happily remain, spending their money in our economy. But what about the British pensioners in Spain spending their money in the Spanish economy? This is the point, that if there's that reciprocal arrangement for British pensioners in the EU states, we'll protect the EU pensioners in this state. That's my very nub of the point that I'm trying to say. But I think I want to draw my remarks to a conclusion by saying that, it has been a sad debate for me. As a Remainer, now committed Leaver, but wanting to work constructively across this House to protect the best bits of the European Union while getting the best possible agreement for British citizens that currently reside in the EU, be they pensioners, be they workers, be they in schools, be they doing research. But it is clear to me, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this whole issue is being hijacked by the opposition to provoke needless outrage. And it does nobody any help. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I hope the speakers after me will try and change the tone and help my constituents of Cardiff. Thank you very much.
Keith Ayres. Deputy Speaker, it is a pleasure to support such a consistent politician. A Remainer one day and then a Leaver the next. But I think he actually made a very strong case for the guarantee for EU citizens to remain in this country. The difficulty is that all those amazing quotes that he has gathered, which the Honourable Member for Braintree in his internet shopping was not able to give us, is actually not worth it unless it is spoken from the dispatch box. Because I think he's right. Government ministers, others have all talked about the contribution that has been made by EU nationals. But at the end of the day, it is for the government to make that statement here in this House or by a written statement.